Feds dropped a bombshell. They added 3 more charges.
Argument. Prosecutors say that Pooh Shiesty's father, William Sr., traveled from Memphis to Dallas, booked the studio, printed the contract releases, and was present during the alleged ordeal. But he, on the other hand, says he traveled from Memphis to Dallas weeks before the other defendants. Pooh Shiesty's father has also spoken out about the case. All right, everybody's saying it's a weak case. Pooh Shiesty's dad says prosecutors have a weak case against him.
Pooh Shiesty's dad just explodes on a lawyer right as the entire case starts falling apart. And no, this isn't just courtroom tension. This is a full-blown legal storm that's getting messier by the day. One of the biggest defense attorneys suddenly steps away.
I will be withdrawing off the case. No implications of me withdrawing off the case. I still think
federal prosecutors stack on new charges, and at the same time, the defense is calling the entire case profoundly underwhelming. So what's really going on here? Because on one side, you've got the feds painting a picture of a coordinated kidnapping and robbery.
This week, 9 individuals, including well-known musical artists, kidnapped and robbed at gunpoint numerous victims at a music studio in Dallas, Texas.
But on the other, you've got lawyers saying there's barely any real proof tying it all together. And now, with emotions running high inside the courtroom and even family members reacting under pressure, the situation is starting to feel less like a clean-cut case and more like something that could unravel at any moment. This whole situation centers around a serious accusation, one that instantly grabbed headlines. Federal prosecutors claim that Pooh Shiesty, his father Lontrell Williams Sr., Big 30, and several others were involved in a coordinated incident at a Dallas recording studio.
These individuals who are charged and arrested include Lontrell Williams Jr., also known as Pooh Shiesty, Lontrell Williams Sr., Rodney Wright Jr., also known as Big 30.
According to those claims, the goal wasn't just confrontation, it was control. Investigators allege that Gucci Mane was pressured into signing documents that would release Pooh Shiesty from his record deal. And the way they describe it, they say it involved force, intimidation, and a carefully planned setup. That's where things get heavy.
Lontrell Williams Jr. arranged this meeting purportedly to discuss the terms of his recording contract with one of the victims. As alleged, once these 3 men were inside the recording studio, Williams Jr. and 8 co-conspirators, several of whom traveled from Memphis, Tennessee, executed a coordinated armed takeover.
Because these aren't minor allegations, we're talking about federal charges tied to kidnapping, conspiracy, and now even extortion. The kind of charges that can carry life-altering consequences, potentially even life behind bars if things go the wrong way. And the list of names attached to this case only made it bigger. Pooh Shiesty, once one of the fastest rising voices out of Memphis. His own father, deeply involved behind the scenes. Big 30, another major name now fighting his own legal battle tied to the same situation. From the outside, it looked like the government had built a strong case. Something detailed, something structured, something ready. But just when it seemed like everything was locked in, everything started shifting. Right in the middle of all this, one move changed the energy completely. Attorney Bradford Cohen, one of the more recognizable names attached to the defense, suddenly announced he was stepping away from the case. No long explanation, no dramatic statement.
I will be withdrawing off the case. No implications of me withdrawing off the case. I still think it's a great case. I think there's a lot of holes in it. I think the government has a lot of explaining to do on the case. But I will be...
update saying he was withdrawing. And the timing, that's what really raised eyebrows. Because this didn't happen early on. This happened as the case was heating up, as more details were coming out, and as the pressure from federal prosecutors was clearly building. Now, to be clear, lawyers don't just leave cases for no reason. It could be strategy. It could be internal disagreements. It could be conflicts that never go
term right now. So it could just be like,
it's not a conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. The lawyer defense, he might be wanting to go with another defense, and then the lawyer might have just told him, like, look, some lawyers gonna keep it real with you, like.
But when it happens in a case this big, people start asking questions immediately. Here's where it gets even more interesting, because even while stepping away, Cohen didn't sound worried about the case itself. In fact, he said the opposite. He made it clear he believes there are a lot of holes in what the government is presenting. Think about that for
Drawing
a
up the
second.
case, I still think it's a great case. I think there's a lot of holes in it. I think the government has a lot of explaining to do on the case.
A lawyer exits, but still says the case against his client isn't strong. So now the question flips. If the prosecution really has everything lined up, why are there claims that it doesn't hold up under pressure? And if the defense is so confident, why is there movement happening behind the scenes? That contradiction alone added a whole new layer of tension. And that's when things inside the courtroom reportedly started getting even more intense, with emotions rising and reactions that show just how serious this situation has become. Inside the courtroom, the pressure wasn't subtle. It was building with every argument, every filing, every delay. This wasn't just another hearing. This was one of those moments where everything feels like it could shift in an instant. Bond decisions hanging in the balance, federal charges stacking up, and every word suddenly carrying weight. Right in the middle of that tension, all eyes turned toward Pooh Shiesty's father, not just as a defendant, but as someone clearly locked into every detail of what was being said about him, his son, and the case as a whole.
You, bro, fucking influenced Pooh Shiesty and his dumbass daddy to do this fucking play.
You could feel the stakes in the room. This isn't a situation where you can just sit back and wait it out. We're talking about serious federal accusations, the possibility of staying behind bars before trial, and a future that's completely uncertain. That kind of pressure doesn't stay quiet. And while reports around reactions vary depending on who's telling it, what's consistent is this thing's got intense. The atmosphere turned heavy, emotional, and charged. Not chaotic in a dramatic sense, but the kind of tension where you can tell this is bigger than just legal arguments. This is personal, because for his father, this isn't just about paperwork or courtroom strategy. This is about watching prosecutors lay out a version of events that, according to the defense, doesn't match reality. It's about hearing claims that could define the rest of his life and his son's life too. And when you connect that level of pressure with everything else happening, the denied bond, the uncertainty, the public attention, it starts to make sense why emotions would rise in a moment like that. But that reaction wasn't random. It ties directly into what the defense is now arguing behind the scenes, and why they believe this entire case might not be as solid as it looks.
The feds know they don't have the evidence nor the shit that they actually need to fully convict.
Behind the scenes, the defense isn't just pushing back. They're going straight at the foundation of the case itself. And the argument they're making is simple, but powerful. This entire situation is being built on assumptions, not proof. In court filings, Pooh Shiesty's father's legal team didn't hold back. They described the prosecution's evidence as profoundly underwhelming. That's not subtle language. That's a direct challenge to the credibility of the entire case. So what are they actually arguing? It comes down to one key point: circumstantial evidence. According to the defense, prosecutors are taking pieces of normal behavior and trying to connect them into something criminal, without any direct proof of a conspiracy. Take the travel to Dallas. The government claims it was part of a coordinated plan tied to the alleged incident. But the defense tells a completely different story. They say he traveled there to care for his son, who was dealing with personal issues at the time. Then there's the studio booking. Prosecutors present it as part of a setup, but the defense counters that this was
a video. So far, the shit that they're saying, they haven't proven just yet. See, it's an illusion right now. Like, the simple fact of the matter of, and I'll keep it authentic, Pooh Shiesty ain't broke.
Something he regularly handled as part of his son's music career. Not suspicious, just business as usual. And then there's one of the most talked about claims, the idea that he printed contract paperwork tied to the alleged situation. According to the prosecution, that detail plays a key role in their theory. But the defense says there's no actual evidence proving that ever happened. No records, no confirmation, just an assumption.
The feds are going to try to say, well, here's the pictures. This is what it is. See, the feds' evidence is merely right now a story by somebody and dumbasses who decided to go on the internet and say, we got this, we got this, we got that. But it's Memphis. How do we know that that chain didn't belong to Scar?
When you line all of that up, the defense's position becomes clear. Being present, being involved in day-to-day business, or being close to a situation does not automatically mean criminal intent. Their core argument is this: proximity does not equal guilt. But prosecutors weren't backing down from that challenge. If anything, they responded by turning up the pressure even more. Just when it seemed like both sides were locked into their arguments, the federal government made a move that changed the entire landscape of the case. They added more charges, and not just minor ones, serious federal counts that raised the stakes across the board. We're now talking about expanded accusations, including conspiracy to commit kidnapping, extortion involving force or intimidation, and even interstate transportation of alleged stolen goods. Each one comes with its own legal weight, but together, they paint a much bigger picture, one that prosecutors are clearly trying to solidify. From the government's perspective, this isn't random. They're trying to show that this was a coordinated effort. A planned situation where multiple people played roles in pressuring Gucci Mane, allegedly using intimidation to force a contract release and take valuables.
This week, 9 individuals, including well-known musical artists, kidnapped and robbed at gunpoint numerous victims at a music studio in Dallas, Texas, purportedly to discuss the terms of his recording contract with one of the victims. Were inside the recording studio, Williams Jr. and 8 co-conspirators, several of whom traveled from Memphis, Tennessee, executed a coordinated armed takeover.
They're building a narrative that connects travel, communication, and actions into one unified theory. One that suggests this wasn't spontaneous but organized. And here's where the tension really spikes. Because adding charges doesn't just increase potential penalties, it increases pressure on every single person involved. It changes negotiation dynamics, it raises the risk, and it forces the defense to respond on multiple fronts at once. But even with those added charges, the defense isn't backing off their stance. They continue to argue that key elements are still missing. No confirmed weapons tied directly to the case, no clear footage supporting the claims, no undeniable proof that ties every piece together the way prosecutors suggest. So now you've got 2 completely different narratives moving at the same time.
That's why they added the charges. They have not been able to find any firearms. So far, they ain't been able to find no video.
One side stacking charges and building a broader case, the other side saying the foundation still isn't there. And while that legal battle continues to unfold in court, there's another major figure in this case dealing with a fight of his own. While all eyes are locked on Pooh Shiesty and his father, there's another battle unfolding at the same time, and it's just as telling. Big 30, who prosecutors say was part of the same alleged incident, is now fighting his own legal war from inside a Dallas jail. At first, it looked like he might catch a break. A Tennessee judge actually granted him bond set at $100,000. For a moment, it seemed like he would be able to step out, regroup, and prepare for what's coming next. But that didn't last long. Federal prosecutors moved quickly, appealed the decision, and had that bond blocked almost immediately. Now he's stuck in limbo, waiting on a Texas federal judge to decide whether he walks free under strict conditions or stays behind bars as the case develops. In the reasoning from the prosecution, they're arguing that Big 30 is a flight risk, not because of a past record, but because of his future. Specifically, a reported high-value record deal that they claim could give him the financial means and incentive to leave before trial. But his legal team came back with a sharp response. They flipped that argument completely. According to them, that same record deal is exactly why he would stay. It represents opportunity, stability, and a reason to comply with every court requirement. Walking away from that wouldn't just be risky, it would be self-destructive. They also pointed to his background: no prior felony convictions, deep roots in Memphis, family responsibilities, including children who depend on him. And if released, he wouldn't just be free, he'd be under strict conditions like home detention, GPS monitoring, and travel restrictions. So again, we're seeing the same pattern. Prosecutors presenting a theory based on what could happen, while the defense counters with what they say is the reality of the situation. And when multiple defendants in the same case are all pushing back against similar claims, it starts to raise a bigger question about the foundation of everything being presented, which leads directly to the bigger issue surrounding this entire case. At this point, the case feels like it's sitting in 2 completely different worlds at the same time. On one side, you've got federal prosecutors laying out a serious narrative, one that involves coordination, planning, and force. They've added charges, expanded their claims, and continue building what they believe is a strong case. But on the other side, the defense is poking holes in almost every major point. And the biggest issue they keep coming back to? A lack of direct evidence. They're arguing that what's being presented is largely circumstantial, that the case relies heavily on connecting dots rather than proving actions, that normal behavior travel, business dealings, communication is being reframed as something criminal without solid proof to back it up. And that's where the doubt starts creeping in. Because in cases like this, the difference between theory and proof matters more than anything. There's also growing speculation around strategy. Some believe the added charges aren't just about strengthening the case, but about increasing pressure. Pressure that could potentially push someone involved to cooperate, to speak, or to shift the direction of the case entirely. Now, to be clear, none of that is confirmed, and it's important to remember that federal cases take time. Prosecutors often continue building evidence as things move forward. Just because everything hasn't been presented yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But at the same time, the defense is clearly confident enough to challenge what's already on the table, and they're doing it aggressively. So what you end up with is a legal standoff. Two completely different versions of the same story, both being argued in real time. And right now, no one on the outside truly knows which version is going to hold up when it matters most. And the final decision, it could change everything. When you step back and look at everything happening, it's hard to ignore just how unpredictable this case has become. You got a key defense attorney stepping away at a critical moment while still insisting the case has major weaknesses. You've got Pooh Shiesty's father pushing back hard in court, challenging the government's entire narrative piece by piece. And on top of that, you got new federal charges raising the stakes for everyone involved. It's a situation filled with tension, contradictions, and unanswered questions. Because at its core, this case comes down to one thing: what's real and what can actually be proven. Is this what prosecutors say it is, a coordinated and deliberate act, or is it a situation where connections are being stretched further than the evidence can support? Right now, everything is still in motion, and one of the biggest turning points is coming soon. A federal judge is expected to decide whether key figures like Pooh Shiesty's father and Big 30 will be granted bond or remain behind bars as this case unfolds. That decision alone could shift the entire direction of what happens next, and depending on how things play out, this might end up being very different from how it first looked. Let us know your thoughts in comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like this video to support the channel, subscribe to Hollyhype TV for the latest updates, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Until next time, peace out.